How's everyone doing?
Good. How are you?
Oh, good. Is the weather turning outside, or you guys haven't been outside either?
Stuck in here.
The sun.
It was here on Monday. It's gone.
I'm going to jump in with a quick follow because I loved your mentioning your kids. And
Yeah.
What from your perspective, how has the landscape changed for professional athlete moms? Whether it's your sport or other sports, have you seen them more than you used to? Do you think there's more of a community? What's some of your impression and the challenges?
Yeah, I think that the landscape of a working mom or a mom in sports has definitely changed, definitely grown a lot. I think that before you probably didn't see the kids as much, or you didn't understand all the ins and outs and everything. And now as a mom, you're trying to relate to people. You know, I have this toddler, and sometimes she has these moments where I'm like, who are you? But also that comes with the benefits. And I think between, obviously, Team USA, but many other countries, they want to make sure that there's a plan in place for for these athletes to bring their kids. You know, because a month away from your kid, at least, is tough for the mom and also the kids, the parents and the kids. So I think that's something I'm really excited about. Obviously, this will be my first Olympics with my kids, because Ruby was born 2 days after the last one. But I'm excited for it, and I think, you know, making sure we continue to kind of build from this point with USA Basketball, Team USA, but also the WNBA, so that from my perspective, maternal rights not only just get better and better.
When you first mentioned that Ruby was born 2 days after, with how closed off Tokyo was, can you imagine not having been able to bring her and Theo in, and how much more fun is it going to be to have them be able to watch you?
Yeah, I mean, I think if I was in the situation that I'm in now 4 years ago with 2 kids, I think it would have been really tough, you know, to have gone away from my kids for at least a month at a time, where obviously they couldn't come in. And I think, you know, as a parent now, you're best because your kids are in a good place. You know, you feel comfortable because you know that they're good, and then we can just focus on our sport. So I'm really happy to say that, you know, we'll be competing in Paris. We'll be able to have friends, family be there. My family will be there, and hopefully Ruby will be watching the games. I'm not sure what she'll be doing in the stands, but she'll be doing something. But it'll be great to have her there.
When you first became a parent, had you talked to other athletes who had previously been parents while playing for USA Basketball about their experiences? Did you have an idea of what to expect in terms of resources or anything like that?
I think it was a growing subject, because when Ruby was born, that was 2021, and we had just come off that new WNBA CBA, where it's there's a stipend for moms. There's you know, just making sure that we constantly have opportunities behind it. Obviously, there's also a way where people can family plan and the IVF and things like that. But it's not all perfect. So I think now, you know, as there are more moms in the WNBA, specifically making sure we talk to each other and understand what we like, what can be better.
Are there specific things that can be better?
2016, that was such a grind. That was such a grind for you, coming out of UConn, going into the WNBA, and then playing with USAB. Can you talk about what you remember, if you remember anything from that, and what advice would you give if Caitlin Clark ends up going through that same cycle?
Honestly, I remember my head spinning. And I feel throughout that 2016 season, there's big moments that stand out. Obviously, winning my 4th national championship, getting drafted to Seattle, getting a phone call that I was going to be a part of the Olympic team. I remember exactly where I was. And then from there, you know, I had the guidance of Sue being my WNBA teammate, and then also my Olympic teammate. So I was just trying to be a sponge. You know, I knew I was the youngest one on this Olympic team by far. So my advice would be to be a sponge and really just to take it all in, because it's a lot. You know, a lot's going to be thrown at Caitlin, you know, just in her rookie year anyways. And having a good vet by her to help her kind of navigate these situations is really important.
In retrospect, was it a good experience for you, or does it feel like,
of
do you know
course.
what I mean, or was it too much in any way?
No, I mean, it was a great experience. I think that, you know, anytime you kind of change and like adjust to the next level, there's gonna be like, you're gonna feel like a sense of like chaos for a little bit. But when I think about Rio, I think about winning the gold medal. My parents and my brother were there, and like luckily we had time to kind of do things off the court as well. So like everything I did that summer was amazing, except like we lost a little bit too many games in Seattle. That kind of sucked, but otherwise it was great.
The first part of basketball being in Lille, what is that going to be like for you? And then also making sure your family and friends they have time in Lille, and then they have to the medal round you go to Paris. There's a lot of travel and logistics around that. How do you guys mentally be able to adjust to all those different moves?
Yeah, honestly, we're just, I think, trying to be flexible and understanding, exactly the situations between like Lille and Paris, and like, is it far, is it not, is it a train, is it what? But March and I are going to make the best decision for our kids, whether that means that they just stay in Paris the entire time and, I do Lille and then meet them in Paris or whatever the case may be. I think Lille is going to be a great venue for basketball, because someone told me they had an event there a few years ago and it was like off the charts, like sold out, that type of thing. So excited to see the city, but also knowing like logistically it's going to be a little bit more of a challenge.
With the time that you're going to be in Paris, after the time that you go to Lille, if you get a chance to spend a day going to any events, which one do you want to go to?
Honestly, I'm like really hoping the traffic is going to be okay. Because in Rio, the traffic was crazy, and we only went to beach volleyball. So I hope to be able to go to track. Track and field is something that would be really cool, just from like seeing the athletes here compete. They represent a lot of Puma athletes that I've been fortunate to meet, especially over this past year. So just seeing like the excitement behind that would be something really fun.
Have you told your parents, what is there from CNS, growing up in CNS, that's going to be, that they're going to be like in Paris? A little bit of a change. Section 3 to Paris.
Yeah, I'm trying to get my parents to commit to Paris for sure. So they're gonna come hopefully.
As the WNBA expands and there are potentially more teams, is there a city that you think would be a good market or a good audience?
Honestly, I think that what the list that Kathy just put out between Portland, South Florida, which I don't know why we didn't say Miami. You're gonna have to help me with the other teams. She said Philly, Toronto.
Sacramento.
Toronto and Denver.
I think that everyone is realizing what they've been missing out with women's sports and specifically women's basketball. So I'm excited about the potential of what we're gonna do. Obviously, we're gonna expand to the Bay and hopefully another team come 2025. If I have to choose, I'm gonna choose like warmer weather. Okay. Summertime. But we just want to be we want to be where we're wanted, We want to be where we're going to be welcomed and where people are going to come out and support us, and hopefully that's everywhere.
What's it been like to watch this explosion in interest, particularly with last year's? Obviously, it started with the college game, but it's carried over with the W.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. I think that, the momentum behind women's college basketball, March Madness, obviously Caitlin, what she's been able to do and all the records she's breaking, and that carry over to draft night. I think that, and someone said this to me earlier, and I think they said it perfectly. It's like, we're not talking about momentum anymore. We're talking about sustaining. And that's really what it should be like. This is our standard, and this is where we need to just only continue to grow. I think it's the perfect time for it. So now college basketball is over. Women's college basketball is over. Watch the WNBA. WNBA is going to go on a pause. Watch the Olympics, because there's Team USA, but there's a lot of other teams, great teams with great players.
Cheryl Reeve also talked about we're beyond just moments, and this is a full-blown movement.
Yeah.
But for you, what have been the moments, even if you just look at your career, that you felt that you've been able to get to this plateau right now?
Honestly, when I think about the moments, I think about So we had that new CBA, I think it was 2019, right? 2019, and then it was like, oh my gosh, are we going to be able to play? Because we're just coming off one of the best CBAs we ever had, and then now we're dealing with COVID. So the biggest thing in that part was the bubble season. Being able to continue on and continue to play and making sure that people saw our faces on and off the court. And then just over the past year, 2020, 2022, like obviously the momentum behind the WNBA, how it went, even when we went to the World Cup in Australia, you could feel it, like the arena was sold out. And then you see women's college basketball, WNBA games, Barclays Center is like off the chain here. So it's like people are finally like paying attention in the right way, and I think that's what's most exciting.
You know how hard it is, Breanna, for anybody to make the WNBA roster, this women's basketball roster, because you guys are just so deep. Not a lot of teams people come out. With that in mind, like, does Caitlin belong in your group? Does she belong in USA Basketball already, despite, you know, just how many veteran players are out there? Is it good for USA Basketball if she's part of it, or is it too soon for a young player?
Yeah, I mean, I think that with Caitlin, it's obviously she's a great player in what she's been able to accomplish in college, and now her taking it to the next level in the WNBA, and we'll see how things go. Obviously, what I want to do is play along the other players that are named on this roster, and I don't know what that's going to be, but I'm sure Caitlin has played USA Basketball before, and I don't think the time with USA Basketball is ever going to be done anytime soon. But we'll see what the team is going to be when they finally announce it. I don't even know when. I have nothing to tell you. But I'm really excited for what she's going to do in the W. I think that the hardest part for her and all the other rookies is like sustaining right now, because you're on this year where you're going nonstop. And that's also something that I remember. It's like you just went a whole preseason, a whole season in college, a whole NCAA tournament, and now you're going to start right over and play the most games in the shortest amount of time that you've ever done in your life.
Were you surprised at the reaction to, you know, what you said, what Diana said? Because it seems like that's stuff that we hear with men's players all the time.
Yeah.
And it's kind of similar to the whole thing with Angel and Caitlin and the Masters title thing. Were you, first of all, were you surprised by it? And is it in some ways a good sign that people are trying to create controversy with women's sports, because it's being talked about?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is a good way. I think it is a good thing to kind of, that people are kind of continuing to have a debate and create controversy. Was I surprised? Yeah, I guess yes and no. Because if you think about this question that's been asked on the men's side over and over and over again, it's like everybody's arguing in different directions. So I think that I'm excited about it. The one thing I wish is that in women's sports, I feel like people have this like want to only have one person have success. You know what I mean? Whereas like this sport is so huge that we can all continue to grow together, because on the men's side, I don't think they do that. And maybe that's because the media coverage has been so big that it's like they know what like LeBron and KD and Kyrie are all eating for breakfast. You know what I'm saying? Where it's like we need to widen our scope a little bit with all the players that we're dealing with, and that's understanding who each player is and the stories behind their basketball career.
In the PA doc, you put your 2 cents out there about what you want to do regarding the CBA, but I'm wondering if any of the momentum coming off of even last W season and going into the NCAA has changed your opinion on the specific things that you'd like to see, other than you've already talked about, parental rights.
Yeah. Honestly, I think that we're just continuing to take notes, because we know right now, like nothing is going to change right in this moment, but we want to be ready for when things potentially can change. So just being aware of all of the things, whether it's like now everybody's up in arms about our salaries, which are so much better than what they were before, like let me tell you. And like the media rights deal that's going to also come into play. we're in this position where we have a lot going on, and it's like we need to make sure that we handle it correctly, so that everything can get better.
How has your approach changed from going to Rio and then Tokyo and now Paris? How has your approach changed and evolved through this process?
I mean, it's honestly changed, like, the way my life has changed, you know? I was a baby in Rio, and I was the youngest one, I was the newbie, and then in Tokyo, having more experience, still trying to kind of learn from under Sue and Diana, and now in Paris, you know, being one of the vets, being one of the returners, one of the ones that have been a part of the Olympics for the longest, obviously having a family now. So I think it's just growth, you know, on the court, off the court growth. I'm really happy with the position that I'm in right now and what I'm able to accomplish, and just excited to keep doing it.
What is your take on the salary discussion? Like, what would you want to say to people about who have no idea what this conversation has been? Or?
I just feel like I should say, welcome to the table. I'm like, I don't know. Like, we've been fighting this fight for a while, and I think that I don't even know what my first salary was in the WNBA, but it was like when the Supermax was probably 119 or 115, 16, 17. So I would say that we are obviously aware of the situations, and we're only going to continue to make them better. This league is 28 years young, and nothing is going to happen overnight. So the biggest way that you can help us have these change and make these differences is buying tickets, buying jerseys, buying league pass, like coming to games, watching on TV, because that's what matters.
Well, the Clark jersey is now already on back order for like 4 months. Like, they didn't make
Exactly.
enough.
Well, I'm Puma.
The Liberty fandom in particular, because I know a few years ago the stands weren't that full. Playoff games this year, you couldn't get a ticket.
Yeah.
What has that been like?
It's been incredible, and I think that's something that I'm really excited about, knowing that we're going to start this season. Training camp is, 10 days away or something like that. There's been a buzz, and there's been a buzz literally in Brooklyn since the season ended, and like I see people on the street, and bus drivers are like beeping their horn at me, and like on the crosswalk, I'm like, what's happening here? But people are excited, and you know, for a New York sports team to have success, and now the Knicks are playing really well also. We need that, and we want that, and I hope when we get to Barclays that we pick up right where we left off, so that we have 17,000, 18,000 in there from game. I think our game 3 is our home opener, so like from game 3 on, like we're ready to go.
Going back to what you mentioned about the grind of going from college season to W to Olympic.
Yeah.
Do you remember feeling like either physically or mentally just exhausted toward the end of that, or?
I think I was just like on this reoccurring like hamster wheel.
Okay.
But also just how everything was new. You know, every place you travel on the road is new, because they're not the places you travel in college, and like finding out, you know, where's going to be my meal and what I'm going to do here, and that's why I say, like, have a vet to any of the rookies. I saw Deasia Fair the other day, and it's like my advice to her would be find a vet where you can ask questions, because sometimes you don't always know the answer.
Women athletes and W in particular, there's been such a leader in social justice issues.
Yep.
And you guys are focusing on voting and reproductive rights this year.
Yep.
We've seen with some of, Alabama, Arizona, how dire of a situation is that, and how important is it for you all to use your platform, to use your voices, to say that's not okay?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important for us to continue to use our platform and our voices, and the fact that we're focusing on voting rights and reproductive rights, and that's going to play a part in the Commissioner Cup, and where that money goes is really important, because it's directly related to us as female athletes, as women, and people knowing the power of their vote and what goes behind that. So just continuing to kind of educate people where we are in this process, and like the way that some states are like very different than others, and the spectrum of it, and really trying to fight for people to have rights over their own bodies. I mean, it sounds wild, but it's like we're struggling with that right now.
I want to ask you a question about the college sports experience in general. I know yours was frontline and big, but it's such an important aspect of the Olympic movement. Like, you see college sports changing, I'm sure. Like, do you, even just as a fan of different sports, want to see anything happen with some of the Olympic college sports? Like, do you feel a little protective of them too, that they stay in this NIL discussion, like that they still get to keep being sort of a feeder movement of these other athletes you want to go watch, whether it's...
Do you mean the college athletes that are
like Olympic sports?
Yeah.
Yeah, like the ones that are less funded, aren't as much NIL, but that's kind of their development system.
Yeah, is playing for the
NCAA, and that's how they kind of get there. Do you know? I know it's not really your corner of the world, but I was just curious if you had ever thought about that.
No, I mean, I think that it's definitely an interesting topic, and obviously, you know, I'm in this different cycle of like having USA basketball and college basketball and more of a team aspect, and I think it's more from an individual sport standpoint.
Yeah, or like the water polos and volleyballs of the world. Yeah, you know, like for them to keep getting funded at the NCAA level.
I mean, I think obviously, you know, everybody wants to continue to make sure that all athletes are funded, and that's where the NIL money is more than just like huge sponsors, but also the way that, I don't know, the boosters can navigate that situation, because they are Olympic sports and they are going to continue on and hopefully play in the Olympics. So, I mean, college sports is a little bit spicy with the NIL and stuff like that. It's gotten a little bit messy. But hopefully, you know, it all works itself out, because I think that, you know, regardless of if they go pro or not, these college kids and college athletes deserve to be college athletes.
I wanted to ask you about BG, because you guys have been together for so long. Like, what's your first memory with BG in USA basketball?
One of my first memories with BG in USA basketball, we were at like an exhibition. We were actually in Spain. I'm pretty sure we were in Girona, which is where March is from. So it's really weird that this whole thing kind of like ties together. And this had to be before the World Cup, 2014. And I was there. I was in college still. Coach Ram was the coach. And like one of the things was like, if I'm gonna go, because we only practice once a day with the national team, that I need to work out extra because I'm missing workouts at UConn. So I'm in the lobby like waiting to go, and BG's like downstairs eating an apple. And they're like, all right, Stewie, are you ready? Like, yeah. And BG's down there like, oh, BG, what are you doing? Like, come with us. So BG and I got this like whole workout in before practice, and she was like, never again am I going to be down in the lobby just waiting this long, because I'm going to be dragged to a workout. So that's something that is definitely really funny, and I'll always remember, and she'll definitely always remember too. But the way that she's been able to come back into this sport after everything that has gone on with her is incredible and really inspiring, and I'm excited to kind of be alongside her representing Team USA again, because it's not the same without her.
Has she expressed any, I don't know if reservations is the right word, I think Paris will be the first time that she's gone overseas since she came.
Yeah. Not to me. I think that, you know, right now, she's obviously got a book releasing soon, which I'm excited to read. And now the fact that her and Sherelle are also expecting is really exciting. I think that she's trying to focus on one thing at a time, but also, you know, like, she was in Cleveland for the most recent training camp, and she wants to help us go for gold.
Cheryl said on stage, like, there seems to be a very intentional kind of mix of veterans and young players every time the USA goes to the Olympics. Thinking back to when you were a young player, just how critical was that? Because I'm sure at that time there were plenty of veterans that could have had that spot, but you got to have that kind of like intentional training ground.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very important, because I think like you have to start somewhere, you know, and you have to really be able to make this a cycle where it's not just like, all right, all 12 are moving on at the same time. And I thought one thing that Cheryl said on there that made a ton of sense was like the culture that was set within USA Basketball. And she's telling me like, I don't know. And it's like, we come together and we have like this sense of selflessness and pride because of the culture that when we were young, we were kind of thrown into. And seeing like Maya and Ketch and Sylvia and Way and Dee and Stu like all come together, Simone, and be their best together, then it was like, okay, this is how we do things. So now for the next generation of people, for the young players at the most recent camp, like Ryan and Aaliyah, now they know, like, we're coming together to represent our country. So we can joke and make fun of UConn, South Carolina, or like things in the WNBA, but like when we come together, it's a family mindset.
What's it gonna be like to like be in like the middle of the season, the WNBA season, you have to like pause, go, and then like maybe you play some of the players like a few weeks before next. Like I don't know, how do you have to like kind of shift, or like is it?
Honestly, I don't think it's nothing that's like, it's not different for me.
Yeah,
this is the third time now. But when you think about it from an outside perspective, it is interesting that we like literally are going until July, stopping, playing 4 weeks, and then going right back.
Right.
But I think it's also like refreshing to have like a little bit of a break where you can focus on something else, because now with this many games in so few days, it gets to be a lot. So I think it'll be like a good little break.
Did what happened team has said that it's the good and the bad of them, like not doing well at the World Cup, not winning the last Olympics. Like part of their mission was to grow the game internationally. This is the result of it.
Yeah.
That they're not going to win everything and every single time.
Yeah.
Do you guys also have that feeling, and are you just hopeful that it doesn't happen on your watch?
I mean, I think we have the feeling that there's definitely a ton of parity in from the world competition level, between teams. Obviously, having that last second buzzer beater against Belgium in Belgium, like things like that, where it's like these countries are getting better, these players are developing, they're making more of an impact overseas, but also WNBA, and they have time together, and that's what shows the most. And knowing that, I think it just makes us really want to like be on our P's and Q's, like make sure that we understand exactly what we're doing, and know that we're doing something that's like extremely tough. 8 straight gold medals is something, I mean, it's ridiculous, and everybody wants to beat us.
Did what happened with BG like give you or other players any reservations in general about going to play overseas, whether that's in the off season or even just with Team USA traveling to other countries?
No, I mean Team USA, no, because you have security when you're traveling, and making sure that everyone is feeling safe and comfortable. I think yes, that probably got even more heightened because of BG's situation, but definitely playing overseas. I mean, I was playing for the same club as BG in Russia. It's sometimes when you're a part of this cycle and you're doing this thing where it's like, okay, I play WNBA, I'm supposed to go overseas, I'm supposed to do this. You forget about like real life things as well. And now I think everyone kind of took a step back and was like, all right, what am I actually getting myself into? And is it worth it?
Does the CBA make it a little easier to kind of absorb that change, like because of the marketing agreements that allowed some players to stay home that maybe it would have just been a no-brainer to go overseas, and now you have at least options?
Yeah, I think also the market in Europe is not as good as it was, but also because the league is growing, because people are more interested in women's basketball and women's sports, there's opportunities, whether it's team marketing agreements, league marketing agreements, or just like things with your brands, where you want to be present, because now building this brand is something that's really important.
Have you been to Paris before, like many times?
I actually was just there like last week.
For vacation?
I was a part of the Year of Sport, the Puma campaign, where it was kind of like all these Puma athletes that are also going to be in the Olympics coming together. And then I dropped my Stewie 3 release in Paris. I also had food poisoning, but that's
In Paris?
In Paris.
Oh,
yeah.
What are you most looking forward to about this Olympic Games?
What I'm most looking forward to is just like feeling it and experiencing it and like thinking about it the way I experienced it in Rio, where it was like so much buzz, so many people being excited, like cheering for Team USA, having people in the stands. That's like, I'm happy that we were able to play in Tokyo. Don't get me wrong, like I need to go back to Tokyo and like really see the city and the country, but to be with fans is something that's special.
Does it feel, you mentioned Rio and what it felt like, does it feel like something beyond this because it's Paris or because we're coming off of COVID Olympics,
I think the desire and the excitement has got to be like at an all-time high just from an Olympic perspective, and I think even being there just last week, like you can tell that they're working extremely hard to get this thing like ready to go. You walk through the airport, you're seeing Paris 2024, you're seeing all these signs. It's gonna be crazy, but it also should be like hopefully one of the best ever.
I'm sorry if you've been asked this before, but have you thought about whether you'll do opening ceremony?
I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what our schedule is gonna be, or like when we even have our first game, but logistically it would be very cool, but also we're in Lille.
Yeah.
So hopefully, but not sure.
Do you have, there have been some concerns raised about security, particularly for the opening ceremony, because you guys are going to be out. Is that something that you think about, or is it?
Yes, that's something that I've, definitely been thinking about more and more, and just making sure that, we're as safe as we possibly can be, and making sure that, nobody, no country, no Olympian is kind of putting themselves in a situation like that. And I think like USOPC and really the Olympics are going to make sure that everything is as safe as possible.
Thank you guys so much. We have to go down to our next stop.
Thank you.
So how'd you get food poisoning?
I don't know.